Hello, my name is Amy Britton. I am the nurse clinician for the Unique Pathogens Unit. Been a nurse for 14 years, and my expertise is in critical care nursing and unique and special pathogens. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to talk to you today. So without further ado, let's kick it off by discussing a little bit about how COVID-19 is spread. COVID-19 is primarily spread in two different ways. One directly when somebody coughs or sneezes, and then those respiratory droplets get released into the air and some other unsuspecting soul comes behind them and breathes in those respiratory droplets and then have potential to get COVID-19. Secondly, COVID-19 is spread through a secondary transmission where that person who has COVID-19 coughs or sneezes or talks, and those respiratory droplets end up on some surface and some unsuspecting soul comes behind, touches their hands on this surface, and then brings their hands to their face and either touches their eyes, their nose, or their mouth. Yes, it actually gets into the body through your mucous membranes. So I want you to keep those two things in mind as we move forward, as we talk about just some thoughts and recommendations on the community opening back up and the spread of COVID-19. So, as parts of the country and the communities open back up, I want to offer a couple of thoughts for consideration. One, COVID-19 and the risk for catching COVID-19 remain the same. So as long as there's people in the community that have COVID-19, you are at risk for going out into the community and catching COVID-19. What we do know, we have been able to study this virus for quite some time, and we do know a little bit more than what we did, but still, this is still a novel coronavirus. And so there's still no vaccine, there's still no cure, and really there's no treatment except for some research trials and then some standard treatment. What we do know is that some people get really sick and some of those people die. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there are folks that have no symptoms at all or very mild symptoms. And these are the people that often spread to unsuspecting people in the community. We also know that the only way to not get COVID-19 is to completely socially isolate. So to completely socially isolate is not practical for me or my family. And so I don't know what it looks like for your family, but you may have to venture out into society, and I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about what that should or could look like. Now, keep in mind, these are just for consideration. All right, when you go out, if you don't mind, I want you to remember a few things. So just because you can doesn't mean that you should. So there's going to be a lot of stores opening back up, a lot of restaurants opening back up. There's going to be a lot of things that are available for people to go to, but just because they're available doesn't necessarily mean you need to visit all of them. I encourage you to only visit the necessary things for your life. So, for example, the grocery store, the bank, etc. And when you do go out, please, wear a mask that covers both your nose and your mouth. I see a lot of people walking around with their nose hanging out of their mouth. You are still leaving yourself at risk for catching COVID-19 and for spreading COVID-19 if you're not covering both your nose and your mouth. And then, for consideration, you may want to limit your exposure to people, especially if you don't know where those people have been over the last couple of weeks. If you can't limit your exposure to people, at least stay 6 feet away from them. So that 6 feet rule is actually based on those droplets not being able to go very far. And so 6 feet is generally a good enough space to stay away from folks to limit your risk of COVID-19. Okay, so there's an exception to the 6 foot rule, and those are the people that live in your house or that are in your inner circle. So feel free to hug on those people and love on those people, but anybody else that's not inside your household or in your inner circle, I would highly consider not being a huggy person right now. So what's also very important is hand hygiene. Now, good hand hygiene actually takes a lot of effort. So good hand hygiene should take at least 20 seconds and cover every surface of the hand. And most importantly, if you are starting to not feel well, You need to stay at home. And then if you are not feeling well enough to need medical care, I encourage you to seek the medical care. And if at all possible, call before you go. So those are a little bit of my thoughts on the community opening back up. And I just want to encourage you to stay strong and to be safe. We're going to get through this, and God bless.